Hey. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Jeff. And man, like always, make sure you have time to enjoy this conversation. It's going to be a phenomenal interview with a man that has so many great things to share today. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Conversations with Jeff, our mission, right, is to impact worldwide conversations you're having with yourself about yourself. With folks like our coming guest is coming on today, right? Helping you take your stinking thinking to truth, right? Understanding the pressures of life and that using that to find your purpose. And most importantly, taking you from the state of isolation into a community, right? Where they understand that and life is about to come back and creating a lifestyle around the comeback and all the different things that you're going to find out about today from our guests are just added on to our mission, right? And you're going to get a chance to chat in the comments. Make sure you do that. You get a chance to follow up later on. Make sure you do that. I'll give you a couple hints on who he is. He's an author. He's written some 3 books, right? And speaker, and he's always out willing to share his message across the world. So anyone looking for someone that's talented, then you'll find out more about what he does, what his specialty is. And so make sure you're hanging out for that. And I'm just on and on about him. But before I do that, I gotta let people know who I am, I guess, right? Yeah. I am Jeff Tyson, affectionately known as the Comeback King and host of Conversations with Jeff and founder of Comeback King Enterprises, where that collective collaborates to bring the message, a worldwide message, as I said, to you, to create a movement around being locked into the stinking thinking, finding strength to rise, right, in the most difficult times, and know that pressure is designed to help lead you to your purpose, right? So this thing called life doesn't have to be a burden. It can be a pleasure, man. So anyway, let me just kind of highlight what we got going on with our guests, and we'll get him up here. And he's, as I mentioned to you, and also I have some notes. I always have a few notes because I want to make sure I don't miss anything key and important. He's an author, speaker, as I mentioned to you, a career coach. He's got some highlights I want to make sure I get right because he navigates disruption with intention. Those of you out there who know what that really means, right? That you're really trying to do that without being crazy about it, right? But with intention and not urgency. So brings rare steadiness to conversations about identity, purpose, and resilience. But I like this. So what we're going to talk about, right? We're going to explore why clarity follows stillness. Let that settle in on you. Right? Let it just sprinkle over you. How leaders misread I'll be all right in a second. All right, anyway, how leaders misread sections or sense of urgency or uncertainty. What to do when your old playbook, when your old stuff's not working. What do you do about it? How many of us will find ourselves in that situation? We tried everything. Now we don't know what to do. You're going to find out something to do today. Moving forward, here's the big one. Moving forward without rushing into wrong solutions. Oh, man. All right, so listen. No longer being stuck today. This is your time to break free. Let me bring to the stage Conversations with Jeff, our next guest, and my new friend, Mr. Michael Jones. What's up, Big Mike?
Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for having me. This is just something I've been looking forward to ever since we first met. And you just radiate joy, and I just love your intro, everything about it. So I'm just thrilled to be here.
Man, well, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure always. The nice thing about what this whole process does is it brings me to people like you, right? Because I get to look around and kind of decide who we talk to. And as I mentioned to you, and they're going to find out too today, man, when I was reading about you, the stillness, what is this? The purpose in the pause, right? And how to find clarity when the new steps aren't clear. So I mean, why don't we just start there, man? Why is that so important to you? I mean, it just oozes from you. Why is it
You
so?
know, yeah, and when you were talking about your intro about the sinking thinking and the whole clarity and pause, I got to thinking about something. So did you ever used to watch Gilligan's Island or Tarzan movies or anything like that?
Absolutely.
I grew up on that, so I'm glad you did. And I don't know if you remember this, but a lot of times they would get trapped in quicksand, and you know the more you struggle in quicksand, the worse it got. And you know, I remember thinking when I was a kid, there's going to be quicksand all over the place. I'm always going to have to watch out for quicksand. But you know, I don't know. I don't know about you. I never have seen quicksand.
Never seen it, but always was afraid of it. Right?
Me too.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
because
the
of
one
that.
thing, absolutely. And the one thing I learned from those Gilligan's Island or Tarzan movies is in the quicksand, the more you flail around and the more active you get, the more you try to fight it, the deeper you get stuck. And that's kind of the premise of what I talk about. It's really that being to just be still. And when you get into that life's disruptions, and I'll talk about some of the ones that happened to me, and it happens to a lot of other people, but I fought it for a while. And the more I fought it, the worse things got. And I'll tell you about that because I'm not ashamed of some of the things that I went through. But yes, it's all about being still and just letting things come to you as they need to and being open to what you can learn from the journey.
Yeah, well, you know, as I'm listening to you, it's like, oh, that sounds good, man. But we're human beings and we panic, right? Well, and people are overwhelmed and anxiety is kicking their butt and the home is crazy, work is crazy. And we're talking about calming down, we're talking about peace. So what, take us back a little bit. I mean, when was it that you're like, oh man, you know, how did you shift? How did this come about for you?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what you talk about with you know the realities of life and you know stress and anxiety and nervousness. That's for real. I come from a long line of warriors, and all of my career, you know, and I've you know I've had some of the greatest role models that I could possibly have, but a lot of them are warriors. You know, my great aunt, my mom, so many people in my life, they would worry about things, and I know that you know it doesn't get you anywhere, but for a lot of my career early on, I worried about getting laid off. I worried about this or worried about that. And, you know, sometimes it did happen, sometimes it didn't. But when it got to be sort of the pinnacle or the climax of things that I would worry about, I was in a career that I loved and I was doing some great things. I was hitting all my metrics. I was just doing great. I was well respected, but the culture in the organization just started to change. And that's when the worry and the anxiety started to get really real for me. And it got to be where I was a shell of myself. Like I'm an encouraging, positive person. I try to lift people up all the time, but I really wasn't. And I got something from Keith Harrell. I don't know if you're familiar with him as a speaker. One of the things that he always says when people ask him how he's doing, he says, super fantastic. And that just
Oh,
lifts people up. Yeah. And so
yeah.
I would do that. And sometimes people would ask me, how are you doing? Just to hear that. And there was a time when things got sort of at the worst, when, you know, some of the leaders on my team would ask me how I'm doing. And I would say, I'm not super fantastic today. I'm really, you know, I'm struggling. And so some things just overall, the climate, how I reacted to it and responded to it, and we can talk about that too. It all got to be too much. And later I found there was a little bit more of a reason for that. But you know, things just got to be a little bit overwhelming. And I had some conversations with my boss that didn't end too well, but you know, at the end of the day, they ended well for me. So that's how it you know, how it all culminated for me on the first part of it.
Yeah. And did you see it coming? You know, I mean, or was it something that snuck up on you?
You know, in hindsight, in the moment, I didn't see it coming. But in the moment, this is one of those things where, and this is one of the things that I help people with and talk to people about all the time. If you look around, you really can see the signs, and people, myself included, often don't admit it. Like I was looking for somebody to ride in on a white horse and save the day and make everything great, and that ain't gonna happen. You know, but these little clues that are going on, like when you can't sleep on a weekend night because you're dreading Monday, when you have to play hype music to do a meeting with your boss, when you have to pray about things before you do a meeting and just calm yourself and steady yourself, that's not a good sign. And you know, that's telling you that's your spirit telling you something's off. So honestly, looking back, those signs were there. I just I fought them. Like I wanted the easy way out. I wanted the, poof solution, and the poof solution doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, unfortunately it does, but it really is on the real negative side of things. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it's game over type situations
Yeah.
that people choose
Absolutely.
when they get like that. When you're talking about dreading the weekend, maybe think about it, as a child growing up, already not wanting to go to school because I was going to get my butt beat. I had to ride the bus to school.
Yeah, bus rider here. Yeah, I used to, man, that's bringing back so many memories. Yeah, the bus was a microcosm of the world. Like, wow.
Oh man. Sorry to get off track there. I mean, because
Yeah,
but
it's all
mom,
good.
but it's the worry, right? It's the
Yeah,
anxiety. That
yeah.
we pick up at it earlier as children, right? I mean, it happens that way, man. So, and you're doing all this stuff, and you had some physical things kind of show up too, didn't you?
I
Along the way.
did. So, yeah, so I used to run marathons, and I'm a veteran, so I used to run with the flag for fallen veterans, and I would notice that my left foot, as I was running, my left foot would kind of curl up on me, and it was hard to run. And I saw some podiatrists, and they were like, "Let's give you a shot of steroid injection, and you'll be good to go." And I
Mhm.
was for a few weeks, and that cleared that part of it up. But one time I was speaking at an event, and I love to speak, and I looked down and I noticed that my left arm was kind of shaking and my hand was shaking, and I was like, this is weird. So I had already gone to my primary care provider about the whole work situation out, and I was already in a different work situation at this point. So
Mhm.
I had the relationship with him, and I think he kind of suspected this, but I went and talked to him about it, and he's like, this is something that I really think you need to get checked out. So he sent me to a neurologist, and some different things happened from there, and learned about a lot of different things after that. But yeah, I started to get some physical symptoms other than just like the lack of sleep and the anxiety.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So you were lack of sleep, anxiety, but you
Yeah,
kept moving forward. So before we move away from
yeah,
this
yeah,
sort of conversation,
yeah.
what can you tell that person that's in that space right now that might hear this, or somebody that knows somebody that concerned? What would you encourage them to do?
The biggest thing is to believe in yourself, and that's one of the things that I lost the belief in myself, and I let the situation, and I let that quicksand get in my head, and I let people kind of dictate a story about me that wasn't true. And I know what's in my heart. So the first thing is to believe in yourself and know that this isn't the end. No matter what kind of a rotten job situation, health risk that you've got going on, relationship, whatever it is, you're going to survive it, and your best days are ahead of you. So know that you've got options, and know that if things get really really bad, you do have some things that you can do, unless you're locked into a contract like in a job or something like that. There are things that you can do to get out, and sometimes the best thing to do is to get out of a situation. And of course, don't go in without a plan if you
Yeah.
can. But unfortunately, I wasn't given that choice, and it turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me.
Well, I was reading something. We were this morning, my wife and I, around when we feel like the worst things that happen truly are to some of the extent biblical
Yeah,
in terms of the preparation for the next thing,
yeah,
you know. And so I love that, man. I wrote down it's not the end,
yeah.
you
That's
know.
true.
It's
Yeah,
just, I mean,
and I do some training on worry and anxiety, and worry is that what if. This it's a question that's based on those two little words, what if, and you build up these worst case scenarios. And there have been study after study done. I think there was one done at Cornell or Rutgers about the percentage of things that actually happened and how much you can handle things. And it's I don't remember the numbers, but it's staggering, the percentage of things that don't even happen. And when
yeah,
they do, like you said, you are prepared. And these things that you're going through, they're stacking to help
yeah.
you to be prepared for the next thing. So it really is. It's something that you can get through for sure.
No, yeah, and but it always helps to hear it from somebody, right? I
Yeah,
mean, and that's the whole premise.
yeah,
Part of the premise of the show is that somebody will need to hear this and be able to do that. So,
yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about the stillness when you want to hurry up, when you want to speed up, in situations, and where it was in your life and where you find it in a lot of other people's lives.
Yeah, so naturally, and especially as men, we have the kind of innate desire to fix things, and that's one of the things that you're talking about conversations with your wife. One of the things, I've been married going on 28 years, and you'd think I'd know
Right.
better, but one of the things that my wife, she cringes when I try to fix things for her rather than just listen. But I guess that's just the way I'm wired. But you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
we tend to try to act and take action and do things to try to fix it. And what am I going to do next? And what's my next step and next step and next step? And we want the answers from A to B to C to D all the way to Z. And it doesn't work like that. So
Hmm.
the more that you really surrender to that stillness and that peace, and just understand that there is really a lot of things that you can impact, but you can't control the outcome over it. But you can definitely control how you respond to it. So, really having that clarity to know that how you respond is going to have a big impact on the outcome. But sometimes you can't control a lot of things, so you try to rush to do things, and you try to rush to make things happen. And there's been so many instances in the last couple of years, and I'll tell you more about my story, but there's been so many instances when, I've wanted to solve everything and I wanted the answers. What comes next? Because I'm, naturally, I'm not an entrepreneur. I've been an employee for over 25 years. I actually started working, well before I could drive a car, but like, I've always been that employee, and I've always depended on a check, and I wanted answers. And so the more I kind of forced things, the more I got confused. But the more I sat back, and things would kind of flow to me. So the
Yeah.
stillness will really reveal some things to you if you'll just be patient.
Well, yeah, and you just kind of closed all that up with saying when you start to step back, it flows to you. You allow it to. It's bouncing off of you when you're moving forward. It's bouncing
Yeah,
away from you. Your mind's closed and your vision is one side, and you're focused on things and you're not hearing it. So I love the fact that you found that ability to do that, man.
yeah,
And usually it's about our story,
yeah.
in our life. And so why don't you tell us about what that situation may have been, referencing what you were speaking of just a second ago.
Sure, yeah. So you see behind me, I've got a picture of one of my heroes, Muhammad Ali, and his life is just such a case study in so many great things. Just such a
Yeah,
great person. But so
agree.
when I had the shakes in my hand, I went to do what a lot of people do. I did get that appointment with a neurologist, and I went to Dr. Google and I put in, here are all these symptoms, and I'm like, okay, it could be essential tremors, which runs in my family. It could be this, it could be that. And it could be Parkinson's, it could be ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. There was a guy in my church who was just a beacon in the community, who we were just lost to ALS. And I looked at all these things that was on the spectrum from it's okay to wow, this could end it all. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, it could be this, could be that. But I started to really worry again, to the worry part, and ended up seeing a neurologist. And they have a standard for how to test for different things. And for a lot of different things, you need to do MRIs and do a lot of really intense things, which I did. But
Hmm.
there's still something that a well-trained neurologist can do, just to spot some things pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
he prepared us for this. But I remember March 7th of 2024, my wife and I, and it was kind of a cold morning. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and we went to the hospital where they have a physician office building, and we kind of held hands and we prayed about it before this happened. And we just turned it all over to the Lord, and we said, whatever is going to happen, to the point we talked about earlier, I'm prepared for it, and I know that we'll get through this. And we just looked in each other's eyes and held hands, and we were like, whatever happens, it's going to be okay. And so
Yeah.
we got into the neurologist's office, and we were the first appointment of the morning. We like to get there early. It was like
Right.
7:30, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Gotcha.
he kind of sat in front of us, and he said, well, I've looked at all the different tests, and this is what I suspected. You have Parkinson's disease. And those
Mhm.
four little words, what could have just been a wave of just panic and terror and dread and fear and uncertainty, it just felt like a wave of peace washed over me, because I
Mm.
could name what was going on now.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
know, of all
Yeah.
the different things, Parkinson's, there's no cure for it, but there is a lot you can do. So we I wasn't thrilled to have it, and I'm not, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I had a name for what was going on. So,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I got put on some medications, and I knew the right things to do. And we just, one of the biggest things to do to deal with Parkinson's is exercise and have a positive attitude, which I've got part two, and I had always exercised. So
Yeah.
we're fighting it. But yeah, that's I got the diagnosis of Parkinson's in March, and I'll tell you more about after the fact. But it changed my life, in a lot of ways, because the company I was working with was really supportive, and they actually were just shocked at how well I was handling it, as I handled other things too. But that's the diagnosis that was that ultimate kind of pause moment. Is my
Yeah.
life is going to change from that
Right.
day. March 7th, 2023 was a big day for me. Or
Yeah.
2024. Yeah.
You remember it like yesterday, it sounds like, and
Yeah.
man, I get it, but you mentioned a couple key things like your
Yeah.
mental state, right? And
Yeah.
physical state. Do the best you can and exercise, and you're showing up here, and man, so you're going to continue to be an example for people, right? And
Yeah.
it's like anything else, I believe this to be true. The divine intervention,
Yeah.
miracles happen every day, but then we have our part, like you're talking about, the mental
Yes.
state, and doing the physical things,
Yeah.
And my journey's taken me recently to folks that are dealing with MS, which was another one
Yeah.
that's supposed to be debilitating, and they're
Yeah.
like in better shape than me, right?
Yeah.
And no signs of anything. So I say that
Yeah.
just to send it to you, my friend. I mean, I see that coming from you, so keep going. He's not done with you yet, so you got a lot of work yet to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not giving up, and I'm fighting harder than I ever have before. So absolutely.
Yeah, man. So now you're doing all these things. You're married, Tony, and you're an author, right? I want to make sure. I'm looking at the clock. I want to make sure we get to your one of your favorite books out of the three before we get out of here. So, and maybe you tell us, have you always wanted to write books, or is that something that you were led to because something happened in your life, or how did
it really is. So I remember in the 1970s, I grew up and I grew up on the Gulf Coast of on the Panhandle of Florida, Pensacola, Florida. My grandfather was a naval officer. My great aunt and my great uncle lived in that community for a long time. And my great aunt was an avid reader. My mom was an avid reader. And my great aunt used to pay me a quarter for doing a book report on all these different books. And I love to read, and I've always loved to write too. So it's just something that I've always known that I want to do.
So you do this stuff, and my mom was an avid reader and that stuff. But what anxiety or worries did you have around writing? Because people are always trying to do, I got a story, I got a book in me, I know I do. How do how do you get started?
Yeah. And I think I'm an anomaly here, but like I didn't have any this was one of those things that just I knew I was meant to do. So that was just like, I don't know if I'm lucky or if I'm just foolish or what, I don't know. But I just cranked out the books and I wrote, and this is where I'm going to change a little bit on some of the books I'll write that I'm working on now. I wrote the story that I wanted to share with people, and I just really wrote from the heart. So it came kind of easily there.
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt that I haven't read them yet, so I have them on my list now since I met you. And there's one though that kind of references the title of the show, right? Purpose. Mm-hmm. And then which one? What's the title of that one?
Yeah, it's called Purpose in the Pause, and that's a 21-day devotional book. And that was, I've always wanted to write a devotional, and I think that's something that I'm going to do a lot more of. But yeah, that's something that's gone really. It's gotten really some great reviews just from people that I know, and it's something that, again, it's kind of from the heart. And a lot of times I'll take things that I see and observe and turn it into a story and turn it into a lesson. And that's one of those things. A lot of those things are included in that book. So it's really fun. You can learn things about, like, when I was a kid and I was at a lecture with my grandfather in Canada and wandered off, and they found me at a soccer field. So yeah.
I wandered off before too. So
yeah. Yep.
Oh man. Well, I'm not going to ask what you were chasing while you were wandering.
Well, I was a little kid. I was actually went to a soccer field. I was chasing sports, which, that lecture was boring to me. So I wanted to do something fun.
Oh man, that's funny. That's
Uh,
funny. So I'm gonna keep you on track here, man, because I
yeah,
got so much more to ask you, and we're not going to get to a lot of it. But I really appreciate you speaking in your truth
sure.
and letting people see you for who you are and
Yeah,
all those things. So I
yeah,
mean, I know. Let me go back for a second though, because
yeah,
I think this happens, and it happened to me. Once you hear the news, you leave the doctor's office, your
yeah,
world just got flipped,
yeah,
right? And still flipping,
yeah,
right? I mean, and you're trying to make sense of it, and all the other things we talk about, anxiety and worry and fear. How can you give us that moment, like at the worst, and then how you felt or what you used to kind of shift and begin to be where you're sitting today, like nothing's wrong.
yeah. So honestly, there's two components. So and well, there's three. So my faith, that I couldn't live without that. That's the most important thing. My family. So as we talked about, I've been married for almost 28 years. My wife is she's my life partner. She's my rock, my lighthouse. So when I'm
Mm,
down, she picks me up, and having that equally yoked relationship. So having a community is a big part of that. So not being alone. And then the third piece is exercise. So I actually now have an implant in my brain that helps with the physical symptoms. So you won't notice any tremors or anything like that. But one of the reasons that I was eligible for that is that I was so active before.
mm,
As we age, and I'm over 50 now, and 53. So one of the things that I used to run all the time, and learned that from cross country in high school and the military, but I never did anything like strength train or stretching or balance or yoga, that kind of stuff. But I met a fitness expert. Fitz Kohler is her name, and she's written some books. She's a cancer survivor, but she advocates for two things. Number one is getting to be your healthy weight, and there's an easy formula for that. And number two is diversify the workouts you do. So, but
mm.
because of her, I had started to strength train and do balance and stretching a few years back, and so physical fitness and exercise was a big part of me being prepared for the next steps.
Well, yeah, and as we get our bodies get much more mature, some
Yeah,
say older,
yeah,
right? I mean, the stretching piece of it is
yeah,
really, and balance are
yes,
really two key things I take for granted.
yes,
That you do that, and those things alone, kind of just calm the body,
yep,
also, and keep our state
yes,
in that place where we're able to pause and that stuff. So you're doing things physically, you're taking care of yourself.
yeah.
I mean, so what's next with you? I mean, where you headed? I mean, what's going on?
Well, and this is one of those things that we talk about, just taking be still and listen to what comes next. I've got so many things that are that I'm trying to chase after, but the things that keep coming back to me are doing things like we're doing today, speaking and writing. Like I've got several books that are kind of in the queue to serve people, and that's really the direction that I want to go. So serving other people in those ways. I'm somebody, my spiritual gift is encouragement and serving others. So those are
Mm,
some ways that I can do it. And I have found that, as I've been open to not chase things really have really come back to me, like the conversation that you and I had.
yeah.
It just happened, and the right people will get put in your path. So I'm really focused on just being still and listening, and then writing. And I do webinars quite regularly for an organization for global companies about different things like worry, anxiety, leadership topics. So that and writing. So that's what I'm going to really focus on.
Okay. So in your pursuit of helping in anxiety, do you do anything? What can you maybe speak to the parents that their children are dealing with anxiety? Because I mean, that's before we. I'm gonna get
Yeah,
this kind of. I'm gonna ask a bunch of little questions before you get away,
yeah,
because I know,
yeah,
what do you tell people in as short
yeah,
amount of time as you can with this interview?
yeah.
Something they can do easily to
I've
kind
got
of.
a Yeah. And I've got a great one. Sorry to interrupt you there, Jeff,
No,
but
you did. You didn't,
so
man. That's the, you're
yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I'm a dad. I've got a daughter who's Olivia. She's a 20-year-old now. She's a junior in college. And it's funny because I've tried to teach her these things as she's grown up. And it's funny that she'll repeat back things to me, like when I tell her, respond, don't react. And she catches me react. And it's funny for her to say that to me. But the biggest tip that I always give people, and you talked about calming your body and calming your nervous system. And when you get in these states of tension, that part of your brain it gets into that fight or flight kind of scenario. The amygdala is the part of your brain that does that. And so it starts to your heart beats faster, your speech speeds up. You really start to get to where you can't solve problems and it just feels like things are caving in on you. And as a parent, one of the things that you can teach your kids and do yourself is breathe. And I do these exercises with classes that I do all the time. And it's the kind of the box breathing where you just take a minute to sit down and you breathe in slowly for the count of 4. You hold it for the count of 4. Then you breathe out. And you do that several times and you physically will notice. And I've had so many people when I've done this and demonstrated it. And I've said, now, who noticed a difference in the way that your body responded before you did this versus after, and hands go up all over the place. So that the quickest thing you can do really is just breathe.
Right.
Focus on your breath.
And let's stay here for just a second. And when we say breathe, there's a benefit in breathing and then breathing, right?
Yes.
Do you talk about the lower abdomen and all that?
Yeah.
Take a second and just drop that nugget out there, man. I think it's important.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because one of the things that I tell people to do is to place your hand on that lower abdomen and imagine that it's a balloon, that when you breathe in, it fills up, and when you breathe out, it contracts. And so the where you breathe and where you focus on, it really does matter. And you can do things. There are guided meditations on YouTube and all over the place where you can do, if you want to get into more advanced things, to do that. But yeah, where your the posture and where you're breathing and how you're doing it, it really does make a difference.
Yeah. Well, thanks for spending, just being, and I don't know, we haven't really talked about my side, but I'm 2 years and a few months away from prostate surgery and been cancer free. And so I've had some abdomen work done, and the whole breathing process is a whole nother level for me in my life at this time. So I appreciate you, because that does make a difference, and it can change your state like that, right? And anybody can do it, right? I mean, we remove the excuse, I can't do it. Well, you're breathing anyway. So just figure out how to use it as a reset button and all the other things. So So listen, before we get out of here, I mean, I want is there anything that we've talked about, and I've kind of moved you around to different places, and that you're like, Jeff, let me speak to this one more time. Is there anything that, that we've shared that you'd like to make sure we wrap up?
Well, the one thing that's kind of been on my heart is just that not chasing things. And in my life, and since my Parkinson's diagnosis, since originally I was fired or let go from a position, and before that, so then I got the Parkinson's diagnosis, and then I was at a company that I loved, and in December of 2024 I was laid off, and it was not related to Parkinson's at all. But my boss, when he had the conversation with me, and he's had this conversation many times, he said, Michael, you by far you handled this better than anybody I've ever seen. And I said, well, I know the best is yet to come, and I know that there's the lessons to be learned here. It's about the journey, and it's all part of the journey. So the thing that I want to impart is, so many things have happened to me since that. And January 2025, my identity is completely shattered. So I've got Parkinson's. I'm not a healthcare executive anymore, which I've always introduced myself as that. And so what do I do? So I just, it's so hard it's easy to say, not easy to do, it's not easy to do, but the more I just let things come to me, the more things would really work out the way that I needed them to do. And things are not, all roses. So I still, there's things I worry about, and there's stressors, but just to be at peace. And it goes back to the quicksand thing. The more you fight it, the more struggle you're going to have, but the more you surrender, you'll really see. And peace be still is kind of the phrase that I use often.
Ooh, I mean, you just said some powerful words. One's being surrender, and then one being peace,
Yeah.
and then being still as an action, right?
Yes.
And then and the quicksand stuff is really just phenomenal way to lay things out. And for
Yeah.
those of you that don't know what quicksand is, because you're too young, then go look it up. Go to Google University, right?
Yeah.
Go Google Gilligan's Island. You got
Yeah. Yeah. You'll see quicksand. Just watch a few episodes. They'll wind up in quicksand eventually.
They'll wind up in quicksand and me some other. That was a great show, man.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that in a long time. So I love that part of what you just shared though, and you're doing these other things. So how do people get a hold of you? What's
Yeah. So
going on around?
yeah, the easiest way is kind of how you and I found each other. I love to be active on LinkedIn. So just go to LinkedIn and look for Michael C. Jones, MBA. Um, Connect with me there. I love to have conversations with people just like you do. And what you do, Jeff, is there's so much of a need for this. And I'm a loyal fan now that I'm so much more aware of you. So find me on LinkedIn. You can go to purposeinthepause.com if you want to sign up for a newsletter there. Every week I put out a newsletter about the pause moment, and then on LinkedIn I also do a newsletter called Conversations Leaders Avoid. So LinkedIn's probably the easiest.
Ooh, conversations with that leaders avoid,
Yeah,
man. So
yeah.
I'm going to kind of extend an invite for you back, and maybe we talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. That one kind of was born in that, I was bitter after a lot of the things with the rotten culture. And I was like,
Yeah.
I went on the attack somewhat, and that's by far the wrong way to do things. But when you educate people and when you have these dialogues with people about what are the conversations that leaders avoid, I've gotten so much feedback about, man, you hit the nail on the head with that one. And the more we're aware of it, the more we can really change things for the positive. So yeah, I love doing that.
Yeah. It's so important. We try not to have a whole lot of crazy
Yeah.
on our show, but we really like that type of depth, right?
Yeah.
Because there's lessons that people can learn from, having the difficult conversations,
Oh, yeah.
parenting for real,
Yeah.
from parenting for real, the leadership in the workplace, the relationships at home, and managing those, being a parent, being a responsible spouse, all that stuff, man, that in a way that's intended to help people. So I'm
Yeah.
serious about that as we have more conversations. So listen,
Yeah.
bro, I love today's show, man, in so many ways. And I'm gonna give you this one last word before we run, if you got it.
Well, I'll turn it back on you, Jeff. You've just been an inspiration to me. We're all connected, and the more that we can really, your mission to change the world one conversation at a time. It might sound hyperbole, but it's true. The more we can really listen and try to understand each other, the better. So I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share myself and to maybe connect with some of the folks that are connected to you, and vice versa. Let me share people with you, because this is just such a rising tide lifts all boats. So thank you for the opportunity.
Man, thank you for my flowers, and I can't wait again to get you back up here and talk more about the quicksand and
Yes,
those other things in your newsletter. So thank you,
absolutely.
Michael. Have a great day. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, hey guys, man, what a show. I mean, what a guy. I mean, just a pleasant, humble man. Obviously, he's got a lot to offer. Obviously, has a lot of experiences that benefit folks that are looking for some help, looking for some direction. Both, we didn't talk about married 28 years in marriage, right? And his marathon runner and writer, and just so many things. But the human side of him, right? It's all over. So I encourage you, if you have any questions and you'd like to reach out to me about him or anything, you can find him on LinkedIn, like he said. But go back and listen to this message today. I know most of you get the recording. I apologize that we didn't get it marketed out sooner for you. But and when you get the recording, drop some comments in there, and let's make sure we stay connected. Man, be part of the community. Right. Let's just change this. Let's make the transformation a real thing, going from stinking thinking to truth, taking life's pressures, man, and finding our purpose in that. and then taking the messages that this gentleman just dropped in here tonight and other guests before, and go from isolation into community, right? Let's stand. Let's do like he said, what I wrote it down, just be still and let life come to you. He's living proof that it works, baby. So anyway, like we always like to say when we wrap up the show, it's been a fantastic time. It's your comeback. Your comeback is now. And let's stand up. Let's do this walk together. All right, we'll see you on the next episode. Reach out to Mr. Michael Jones. I encourage you to do that. Grab his books. We didn't get the names of the books, and I don't have them for you, but if you want those, let me know. One of them is Purpose in the Pause, I believe. Have a fantastic day. And thanks again for Mr. Michael Jones and his message. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care.